So if you missed my video earlier in this week, I already made a video talking about how I think the Ravens defense will attack the Bills offense. I gave the Bills 24 points in 11 possessions. Now let's talk about the Ravens offense against the Bills defense. Will they be able to score more? Well, first, let's talk about this play. So this one's going to be zone coverage that Cincinnati is in. Yes, I'm using Cincinnati footage. I know people are going to say, well, I mean, obviously the Bengals defense is way worse than the Bills defense. And while that is true, I mean, Pro Football Focus currently has the Bills' run defense graded as the second worst in football. I don't quite believe that is totally true, but there's no doubt about it. The Bills' run defense hasn't been great this year. But anyways, the way this play works is it's zone coverage, and there's actually an extra man dropping back into coverage. You look at the Cincinnati player who I've circled in blue. He's going to drop back, cover the flat all the way to Lamar's right. But also, they're expecting this to potentially be a running play. So really, the way it works is Lamar is going to fake as though he could be handing the ball off to either a player running a jet sweep or the back. The back actually runs out in front of Lamar, and then Lamar follows him. And that's kind of the way this works, as it gives Lamar an option. He could throw the ball or run the ball. Watch, Jackson takes the snap, fakes a handoff to the jet sweep area right there. And at this point, you notice that the Cincinnati player who I mentioned earlier, he's now running in to try and really tackle Lamar Jackson. But because of that, now there's no one open in the flat to the right. And the Ravens move so quickly that at this point, Lamar can easily just make this throw. As you see, he is able to make the throw. They pick up yards just so easily. And, it was they needed a lot of yards on that one, but they were able to gain a good amount on that first play. So that obviously helps. It was a 1st and 20. It's now a 1st and 10, just like that. And that's just kind of what I'm bringing up, is that when things work for the Ravens, they work so well. And obviously, it's all based on the running game. Like, watch. This one's a good example of just a running play. It's Lamar Jackson isn't even doing much. He's basically just being your typical quarterback. He just hands the ball off and goes off screen. But the way it works is that you're going to have multiple offensive linemen pull over. You have your center and their right tackle. That's who's pulling over right here. And they're going to go out and they're going to just help lead block. The Cincinnati edge rusher on the left side is unblocked. He'll get blocked by the center. You also have 70 to tackle. He's moving up to block a linebacker. And there's a double team, which will eventually block another linebacker. So that's the way this works. Jackson takes the snap. He just hands the ball off to Dobbins. And look at this running lane. I mean, this is as big as you will ever see in the NFL for Dobbins right here. I mean, this is just too easy. And again, say what you want about it being Cincinnati, but nevertheless, I mean, this doesn't happen too often, and this is what Baltimore can do to people. I know they've had their injuries in their offensive line, most specifically Ronnie Stanley has been hurt, but at the same time, I think the guys have really rebounded nicely. It took them a couple weeks, but at this point, they're playing as good as any offensive line in the league. Dobbins keeps running up the middle, and he's going to pick up a big gain on this one. So that's what Baltimore can do to people. It really is. They have just this incredible run offense. This one's another good one. I decided to show a play from Cleveland because I figured those are somewhat similar defenses. Obviously, Buffalo's is much better on the back end, but in terms of the front seven, I thought there was some similarities. But the way it works is that it's, again, you're going to have multiple players who are going to be able to lead block for Lamar. And the two I have in blue right there, those two blocks, those are guys who don't necessarily have like a quote-unquote assigned man. I mean, there's not someone you're supposed to block on this play. You just run out and block whoever's in that gap. That's what you're trying to do. Lamar Jackson is going to actually keep the ball himself. He fakes as though it could be a handoff to his left, which is our right, which is going to get the edge rusher who is on Lamar Jackson's left, our right, number 54 there, to kind of run off in that direction. And so once he does that, basically gives him an extra blocker. And as you see, they already really didn't need that extra blocker because 74 right there, just looking for someone to block. But he has no one to block because this was so well ran by the Ravens, and Cleveland could have done a better job of trying to get in position, but it's just difficult because these plays happen so quickly. Jackson does get into the end zone. That's what this Ravens defense can do to even the best run defensive teams. So a team that struggled with it, well, that could be an issue. But then I started thinking, and I was saying, well, how do I really know how well the Bills defense will do against Lamar Jackson in this Ravens offense. Because while, yes, it is true that the Bills' run defense has given up some yards this season, it's just a different animal with Lamar Jackson. So who knows exactly how well suited they will be to try and play against the Ravens. So how would anybody have any idea how, guys like Tremaine Edmunds and Matt Milano will be able to fare against Lamar Jackson? And then I realized, well, they played last season. Let's watch the tape from 2019. We'll start off with this one. And I know people are going to say, first things first, that, hey, these were two completely different teams back then. That's true. That is absolutely true. But I'm just trying to look at some players that I know will still be playing and having a big role in the game this weekend. So there are absolute differences, but, let's mention that, but let's also watch it and see if there's things that we can take away. I think there is. This one's a good example of one. So Lamar's going to fake as though he's going to hand the ball off, and then he's going to run out to the right side of the screen. And the way this works is that I really want to focus on the linebackers, which is Milano and Tremaine Edmunds. Those are the two guys. So 49 and 58. Baltimore has a double team to try and get up and block Edmunds, and they're leaving 58 completely unblocked. They have multiple Baltimore players who are going to run around, and again, that blue means that they're basically just blocking whoever, so he could end up getting blocked. But really what Baltimore is just trying to do is get Lamar Jackson to the edge and make sure that nobody is currently closer to the sideline than he is, so that way the two Baltimore players in front can make their blocks. Watch, Jackson takes a snap, he does keep the ball himself, and notice both those two linebackers, they rush in right now. They're trying to get to Lamar Jackson, but you just cannot get to him that way. You gotta make sure that you basically go to the outside, force Jackson to run through the middle. You do not want to let Lamar get into open space, and they made a mistake right here. And in fairness, this is how you would attack basically every other rushing quarterback. Lamar Jackson is the first of his kind. There's no one who's been as good at accelerating as him while still being as good at throwing as him. I've never seen it. And so it's understandable, but again, now that they've seen Lamar before, it's been over a year, but maybe that will help them. Because watch how Jackson is able to outrun Edmunds in a way that, even a good rushing quarterback, if that's Ryan Tannehill, Edmunds makes the tackle. Lamar Jackson is just a cut above even the top guys. There was also this one, though, and that one wasn't great, but to be honest, I thought that most of the time, the Bills did a really good job of shutting down Lamar Jackson's running game as much as a team can do. I thought that especially the guys that I wanted to really focus on, the Bills' stars played like stars in this game. But watch two guys. Edmunds is one of them. He's 49. Talked about him before. He's a great linebacker. He really is. But a kind of underrated guy in this, someone that really jumped off the tape when you watched what he was able to do last year, was Quentin Jefferson, number 90. He's playing on the edge right here. He actually had a good game, and he might be well suited for someone like Lamar Jackson. Because again, sometimes the talent to beat the other 30 teams might be different from the talent to beat Lamar Jackson in the Ravens offense, because they're just that much different than every other offense. Watch how Jackson takes the snap. He bobbles it a little bit and then is finally able to get it over to Justice Hill. So he's handing the ball off to Justice Hill, which, that's kind of an asterisk on this play of if this happens this year, that's going to be J.K. Dobbins, who's a lot quicker. So there is an asterisk there. But yeah, I think Jefferson doing a good job of kind of staying on the edge right there, so Hill can't really run to the inside, but he also, if he's going to try and get to the outside, now he has to make sure he outruns Edmunds, who is himself doing a good job at getting over there, so that way he feels that he can make the tackle on Hill, whereas, if they were even, then maybe he would get beat by a fast a fast halfback, and he especially would have gotten beaten by like a J.K. Dobbins if he didn't make such a good read. But he does make a good read. He's able to make the tackle. I think he makes a quick tackle even if that's Dobbins, so I don't think the player makes a huge difference. And so that's worth mentioning as well, is, they were able to make some good reads, which is key against a team like Baltimore. This one's another good play from Jefferson, who, again, I suspect he'll get a good amount of playing time this game. He is on the edge to the right. Lamar Jackson is going to keep the ball himself and run to the right. So that's what's going to happen here. But watch how Jackson takes the snap, fakes the handoff, gets to the right. But look at Jefferson. He's doing a great job of staying in that direction. It's so easy to try and get to the inside, but he knows he doesn't have to worry about that. He can stay to the outside and try and make a tackle on Lamar Jackson just like that. He is able to get to the outside, and really, one of the reasons why that's so important, he doesn't quite make the tackle, but he definitely disrupted the play, and one of the reasons why it's so difficult to do that against a Lamar Jackson type is if you're tied and you need to get to a certain place, as in if it's the same distance away, you're going to lose the foot race. You are slower than Lamar Jackson. You have to give yourself an advantage, and the way you get yourself that advantage is by positioning, and the way you get good positioning is by not getting fooled by fakes. The Bills are going to have to be good at that. They were pretty good at it the last time these two teams played. However, Baltimore still won that game. And again, we're talking two different teams. I mean, Josh Allen he was just a completely different quarterback last year. I didn't even bring up the tape from last year about these two teams when I made my video about the Bills' offense against the Ravens' defense, because they're completely two different teams. They're still two very different teams now, but I think there's enough similarities just in the X's and O's. But this play was a huge play. It was a cover zero, and I think that Sean McDermott and the Bills' Bills' coaching staff is not going to dial stuff like this up too much more, because they got burned on it here, where, it's going to be a passing play. They just thought for sure this is going to be a rushing play. Jackson takes the snap, fakes the handoff, and you see Hayden Hurst is about to get wide open right here, but it's not really because of a great route or anything. So again, another player who he's not on the team for Baltimore, but it's not really about him so much. Like Mark Andrews would have absolutely gotten open on that play. It's more about what's going wrong for Buffalo. The defensive player who's in charge of covering Hurst is totally expecting a run right here. He just made a mistake, and because of this, it's going to cause, chaos and allow someone to get wide open. Hurst does get open. Lamar Jackson makes this throw. They're able to get a touchdown out of it. Again, how much do we take into consideration? I just don't know. You could argue a lot. You could argue a little. It's really hard to say, but what we do know is that this Bills defense is not as good as it was last year, and it still gave up 24 points to Baltimore. I do like the way that Buffalo's linebackers match up against Lamar. I think they actually do a pretty good job, specifically Edmonds, and they have some smart players on defense, and they're just a well-coached team. So I do think that'll help, but also coaching can only get you so much. You have to have the talent, and I definitely think that this Ravens offense is much more talented than the Bills defense, even though the Bills absolutely have some pieces. I think especially through the ground game, I do think it's advantage Baltimore. If you can clear out a big gap for your running back to run through, it doesn't matter how good of a read your opposing linebacker made. And also, these two teams just, I think the Ravens have gotten better coached as well, and they're more creative with their play calls than they were in that Buffalo game. So I'm going to give Baltimore, I said this is an 11-possession game. I think they'll do well on offense. I'm going to give them 27 points, which means I have the Ravens beating the Bills 27-24. It could easily go either way. I feel like this is another frustrating game where I definitely could see either thing happening, and it's really hard to tell. I could see either team blowing either other team out as well, which is why it's so difficult to pick. I'm going to pick Baltimore. If you pick Buffalo, I'm not mad at you. I think it's a coin flip game. Again, I said this last time about really both these two teams. They keep playing in these games. I just don't know. I have a hard time deciding what I think. But yeah, hopefully you guys at least gain the information where you can make your own prediction, pretty well. Let me know what you guys think. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.